Hi everyone, I'm Tom. Today's Daily Rant is about a subject that I probably hate more than anything else in the world, and that's the cell phone. The problem with these little things, they become such a distraction in our lives, and they've taken over some of our lives to a point where we can't communicate with one another. Now, let me tell you about my cell phone experience. I've been using cell phones since 1990. I can remember when the first cell phones came out. They were these big bricks. You used to carry them in a bag. It looked like a purse. And we called them little bag phones, for that matter. Had a cell phone adapter kit that you put on top of your roof, an actual antenna, and you would string the cable over so you could use the phone. 30-minute plan would cost you about $30. It wasn't like these unlimited plans that we have today where you get all this data, texting, phone calls for some incredible price that I pay less than probably my car payment for some of you. Now, my cell phone experience also includes, while I was in the Army, I had the opportunity to test a lot of different electronic devices, to include phones, palm devices, tablets, to see how they would better help recruiters in their day-to-day activities. We found out that most of the time, the cell phone itself was more of a distraction than it ever became an actual tool to help the recruiter. Now, when you need to get a hold of somebody in a hurry to get some type of documentation, yes, or to follow up with somebody, it was a great little tool. But outside of that, it really had become a distraction. Now, some of my quirks with it is people that like to drive with these things. They're going blah, 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 blah the whole time where they're going. They're weaving in and out of traffic to the point where they don't see people that are actually driving. They're cutting people off. They become a distraction. And God forbid they get a text and you see them driving along like this. Shit. Oh my God. You know, zipping in and out of traffic. They become a real hassle on the road. And people need to learn a little bit of etiquette. Put the dang thing away. That's what you need to do. Now, texting to somebody in a room that you're sitting around with, conversing with, is probably even more distracting and some of the most incredible things that we don't use our people-person skills in. Now, if I'm sitting in a room and we're literally sitting beside each other and I'm over here clicking away, pushing a button, and all of a sudden you get my text and you're like, why couldn't have I just showed you maybe that same video on my phone? Or, better yet, just turn to you and say, hey, why don't you check out this little bit of information I have? Once again, the personal piece out of the picture. Now, one of my weirdest ones that I deal with is when people are in stores and you see them arguing on a phone. Now, if that's one of the most stupidest things I've ever seen is when you're screaming in the phone at somebody, blah, 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 you're an ass, blah, 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 you don't know what you're talking about, and you've got 20 people around you staring at you like, what is wrong with this guy or this woman? I mean, use a little common sense. When you're on this, everybody around you hears everything. And some of you have your volumes so high on your phones that I can hear the person on the other side. Now, me and my wife were just discussing when we had our Nextel phones, which back then used to have that little walkie-talkie feature. And you can have a little fun with people. Now, my cousin, he's real fun to be around and so forth. My wife just happened to be in the store, and he knew she had her cell phone with her, which being a Nextel, had the little walkies. And he started a conversation. He goes, so, where's your husband? How about we get together, blah, 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 goofing around. Well, she's standing in front of a cashier, so she got a little embarrassed, and eventually I had to get him back. But outside of that, it's really not a good tool. Now, the other thing that I think is sexting. My God, if you want to sext and send pictures, open a damn porn site, for God's sakes. At least make some money off of it. If you're going to put your body out there, your junk hanging out for somebody, for God's sakes, make a few bucks. That's all I got to say. I don't want to get a text and go, oh my God. And it looks really small in these screens, okay, to begin with. So maybe you should think that out before you even bother sending some of this stuff out, okay? Now, the last thing and the most distracting thing is when you go out to a restaurant and somebody's got a phone, or better yet, a whole group of people's got phones. You go out, you meet people so you can hang out, talk, catch up, and everybody's sitting around staring at their phone. Well, that tells me one of two things. Either I'm not an interesting person, or we're not saying anything interesting, or we're the boringest group of people in the world. Now, I understand if you're waiting for somebody and you're kind of communicating back and forth before you place your order. But the fact is, as soon as your group arrives, I just saw this recently where everybody should just put their phone down on a pile. And the first one to pick it up, a phone, they're the one that picks up the tab. Now, I hope I go out and we do that, because if you think, well, Tom hasn't ordered much, that was before you picked your phone up. My ass is going to be ordering steak, lobster, dessert to go, everything, and I probably won't eat it. I'm going to have alcohol on your bill. You're going to remember the fact that you picked this little phone up, this distracting little tool, just because you wanted to. Now, fact is, it is a tool. And for emergency purposes, it does have a reason. But we've taken it past that. If all you do is get it so you can play Angry Birds on it and all your little games, save your money. When you're paying hundreds of dollars every month for your service contracts, you're tied up for a couple years in this, it's not worth it. Most of these phones with a contract are going to cost you $2,500 or more over a 2-year period. If you walked in and they said, give me $2,500 now for this phone, you tell them they're crazy. So why are you going to do it over a 2-year period? Think about that for a moment. My name's Tom Williams, and I'm out of here.